Hi guys, today's session is payment methods in international trade. In international trade, there will be agreement between the exporter and importer regarding the payment. What method to be adopted in this particular trade? So here there are certain factors to be considered for determining the payment method. Let's look into that. So basically, one thing has to be noted down, that's known as when the importer will make the payment. Is it after receiving the product or before receiving the product importer will make the payment or not? And second aspect to be covered is what is the mode of payment? Is it cash, wire transfer, online transfer, demand draft, or any other methods of payment? What method of payment or what mode of payment to be made? So this should be discussed. And the next one is when the exporter will deliver the products to the importer. Exporter can deliver the products to the importer before receiving the cash or after receiving the cash from the importer. So when the exporter will deliver the product to the importer. So these are the few important things to be discussed for determining the payment methods in the international trade. So this is purely based on the relationship between the exporter and importer. If there is a good relationship between exporter and importer, it will determine what method of payment to be made in the international trade. Then the product that's sold by the exporter to the importer is very scarce in nature. That will also determine what method of payment to be made in the international trade. And how much distance is there between the buyer and seller? That will also determine the payment method in the international trade. And the relation between the currencies that involved in both of these countries, that will also affect on the payment method. So all these factors will be considered for determining what method of payment has to be made in the international trade. So it's all based on the relationship between the exporter and importer. So we want to finalize when the importer will make the payment, when the exporter will deliver the product to the customers, and what method of payment has to be made in the international trade. These are the few things to be discussed for this purpose. So basically there are three methods of payment. The first one is known as cash in advance. Second one is known as open account. And third one is known as documentary credit or letter of credit. What is cash in advance? This is not a common method that used in the international trade. Exporter will get the payment well in advance from the importer, which means that importer have some kind of confidence in the ability and willingness of the exporter will deliver the product to him. So importer have complete confidence on the exporter that, they will definitely deliver the product to us. Such kind of terms of conditions will be there. So this is one of the methods which is providing greater security to the exporter but not for the importer. Why it is like that? Importer is making the payment well in advance and exporter is getting the amount well in advance before delivering the product to this importer. That's a peculiarity of this method. So in what circumstance this method has to be adopted? So when the product is very unique and very scarce in nature, the product is not available in the market, then importer will agree with this particular method, cash in advance method. Then importer is a new person who is not familiar in the international market, very new person, then definitely importer will go for this option, cash in advance method. Sometimes the exporter have some doubt on the credit worthiness of the importer, whether the importer have the capacity in making the payment in the future. So such kind of doubts are arising in the mind of the exporter, then exporter will definitely go behind this method of payment, cash in advance method. So what is this method? It's a method in which the exporter will receive the payment well in advance before delivering the products to the importer. Then next method is known as open account. This method is also not used in the international trade. Goods are shipped by the exporter before receiving the payment. which means that importer complete believed by the exporter. Importer's ability completely believed by the exporter. Goods are shipped by the exporter to the importer before receiving the payment. Before receiving the payment, exporter will deliver the products to the importer. This is very scarce method. It's not adopted by all companies. So basically, this method is implemented by the multinational corporations in between the parent company to the subsidiary company transaction. Say for example, the goods are shipped by the parent company to the subsidiary unit in India. One parent company in US, they are delivering the products to the subsidiary company in India before receiving the payment. Such kind of methods are known as open account method. So this method is applicable only when the exporter have complete faith and belief on the importer's ability to pay the amount. There must be some kind of trust between these two parties. So after delivering the products, then the importer can make the payment within 30 days, 60 days or 90 days time. So 90 days normal credit period will be allowed by this agreement. So this is basically very much advantageous to the importer. There is no risk for the importer, but more risk for the exporter. What is the risk for the exporter? Whether the importer will make the payment or not. That is the risk faced by the exporter. But once the party is not making the payment, then the last chance for the exporter is to take any legal action on the basis of the sales contract. So there will be an agreement, that is open account agreement. If the importer is not making the payment, then finally the exporter can take some action against the importer on the basis of this contract. And the next method is known as documentary credit or letter of credit. This is one of the common methods that used in the international trade. Why it is common? The risk has been shared by the exporter and importer equally. The security is available to both parties. That's the peculiarity of documentary credit or letter of credit method. It's one of the most secured method of payment in international trade, offering the exporter a conditional payment guarantee from the importer's bank. What does it mean? Exporter will deliver the product to the importer, and on behalf of importer's bank will give the commitment to pay this amount to the exporter after a certain time of period through a particular instrument which is known as letter of credit. So that's the peculiarity of this particular terms of conditions that involved in the payment method. So let's look into that process, a very simple process. Exporter will deliver the products to the importer, and after that exporter will send all the documents, document of title, then all the shipping documents, marine insurance certificate, bill of lading, etc. All these documents will be given through the banks. Will be given through the bank with an instruction that all these documents can be released to the importer only when they are making the payments. So the importer is getting all these documents from the bank, importer's bank, then they can take the possession of the products that are available in the ship. That's the peculiarity of this particular agreement. So there are two methods under this. One is known as document against payment, and second one is known as document against acceptance. What is document against payment? So exporter will give the instruction to the bank for taking the delivery of all these documents from the banks when the importer is making the payments. Such kind of agreement is known as document against payment. Importer is making the payment, then importer can take all these shipping documents, document of title, everything from the bank, and they can go with these documents to the ship for taking the delivery of the products. That is the peculiarity of document against payment. And what is document against acceptance? Exporter will give the instruction to the bank. Once the bill of exchange has been signed by the importer, then the importer can take the delivery of all these documents, and importer can go to the ship and take the delivery of the products. That is known as document against acceptance. What is actually needed to the importer for taking the delivery of the products? All these documents are needed. All these documents are needed. Document of title, okay, then marine insurance certificate, bill of lading. All these documents are needed for taking the delivery of the products from the ship. So these documents will be handed over by this importer's bank only when the importer is making the payment. That condition is known as document against payment. And second one is document against acceptance. Exporter will draw a bill of exchange. Once the bill of exchange signed by the importer, then the importer's bank will hand over all these documents to the importer. And then the importer can go to the ship and take the delivery of the products, which is known as document against acceptance. So these are the three methods that involved in the international trade. What are those? One is known as cash in advance, which is not very common. Cash in advance is known as exporter will receive the payment well in advance before delivering the products to the customers. That's the risk faced by the importer in this particular agreement. And second one is known as open account. And third one is the most popular method, which is known as documentary collection or letter of credit method. The risk has been shared by the exporter and importer equally. That is the peculiarity of this method. So these are the three methods of payment that made in international trade. Thank you.